In 2015, I was in a pretty dark place in my life. I was depressed, getting blackout drunk every other day, and was dealing with an injury that really inhibited my ability to walk. I was basically trapped at home, and I felt like I had no future ahead of myself. Simply put, I felt hopeless. During this time, a friend of mine suggested that I should check out Undertale, a game that he said seemed like a game I would be into. After watching the trailer and seeing the price tag, I was intrigued enough to purchase it and give it a go. Truthfully, I don't think this game could have come to me in a better time in my life. It was silly and goofy enough to make me laugh and helped me escape my painful reality for a while. At the same time, it also encouraged me piece by piece along the journey, every save reminding me the importance of determination. Talking about Undertale 10 years later after it came out is a bit of a challenge for me. I can't sit here and explain the mechanics or just talk through the plot. It's Undertale. You know what it is. But I guess this isn't really a review, but rather a look back on a game that touched the hearts of a lot of people, including myself. Normally on this channel I review indie games. As you can imagine, when reviewing video games, you usually want to talk about them while they're fresh, kind of catch the wave of intrigue that surrounds the game as it's new. Frankly, the only reason I'm doing this video is because I've really been wanting to play Deltarune. However, Deltarune currently only has 4 chapters out as of making this video, and there will be 7 in total. I think it's probably prudent to wait for the full release of all the chapters before reviewing it. While weighing this decision back and forth in my mind, I began to reminisce about Undertale and what it meant to me. You can't feasibly do a review over a game that came out a decade ago. That said, this channel really has 2 purposes. Firstly, I want to become a trusted source for finding new and interesting indie games for you, the viewer, to check out, giving my subjective opinions over what a game does right or wrong. Secondly, and most importantly, I want to talk about indie games in a way that showcases why they're important. Because ultimately, I think that the heart of gaming, the true core of gaming artistry, is most often found within indie titles. That isn't to say or argue that all AAA titles are soulless cash grabs. There's plenty of big-name games that have made an impact on the world in terms of both fun and artistic value. But there's something magical found within the indie circles. I can say that with confidence, being someone who's pretty varied in his gaming experience. I became Elden Lord. I've been called every slur imaginable on the Summoner's Rift. I grew up with Super Nintendo classics, defeated the Mother Brain, saved Hyrule from Ganondorf, and found my princess in the right castle. I've spent countless hours in hero shooters, battle royales, and first-person shooters alike. If I listed out all the games I've played, we could honestly be here all day. This isn't some sort of weird brag or desire to brand myself as some kind of expert. It's more to set the framework and showcase that I've had a lifetime of gaming experiences, and throughout all of that time, it's usually indie games that come first to my mind when I start thinking about games that truly meant something to me beyond just being fun. Undertale being the prime example, Patient Zero if you will, the origin story of Dr. Indie and why I started this channel in the first place. I said I wasn't going to explain how game mechanics work nor do a deep dive on the story, and that's true. This video isn't going to be filled with off-the-wall theories. The goal is to discuss why this game is so impactful, and firstly and foremost, it's just a really good game. Considering how a game is good usually includes how it plays and what's going on in the world, so I find the best course of action here is to start with the unsophisticated point. The game is simple. Pixel art is probably my favorite art style when it comes to video games. It reminds me of my childhood with Super Nintendo games, it feels timeless, and what's more important, every pixel matters. I won't lie, when I first booted up Undertale and saw this, I laughed at how goofy it looked. This ain't exactly what I'd call realistic graphics. Frisk, my girl/boy, God bless you. Everything in this world is so simple, yet specific. There's so much done with so little. I can show you a picture of a goofy-looking skeleton and a vast majority of people on the internet will immediately recognize who this jokester is. I can play the few simple opening notes from the theme, and memories will come flooding back from anyone who's played this. There aren't any complex systems of perk trees, you don't get new magic abilities or cool new moves with every level up. The overall system is basically nothing more than a turn-based RPG. You take your turn, choose your action, and then the enemy gets to take their turn. There's no crazy items that really change the game. The items usually just give some kind of flat stat boost, and if anything, at first, it seems rudimentary. Having all of these components be elementary, however, just gives the room for more intriguing aspects to shine. For example, Undertale takes the turn of the enemy and instead of it just being a bland attack, turns it into an engaging minigame. Each enemy has their own attacks, forcing you to learn patterns and overcome short-timed bullet hells. Then there's the aspect of sparing enemies. If you outright just want to kill an enemy, things are pretty straightforward. If you're wanting to spare them, however, you have to figure out how to interact with them in order to get them into a state that you can show mercy. Then these mechanics are built upon and pushed further when it comes to the boss battles, throwing in unique restrictions or variations that take it to the next level in terms of entertainment and challenge. To me, it feels like everything in this game is precise. There's no need to be convoluted or overly complicated. There isn't any grinding for the sake of making it a 60-hour plus game. It seems like Toby Fox had a specific idea in his head and he hit the nail on the head, both in gameplay and especially in the ambiance. The atmosphere in Undertale is perfect in my mind, and a lot of that is thanks to the stellar soundtrack. I don't want this video to come off as me just adulating Toby Fox, but I've got to give credit where credit's due. The soundtrack is an easy 10 out of 10 in my mind, absolute perfection, and as much as the game as a whole is great, the soundtrack shines through as the best part in my eyes, or in this case, ears. I love video game soundtracks. I have a small collection in vinyl of some of my favorites, including Undertale. There are songs that encapsulate the silly and wild side of Undertale, while others showcase the shadows and darker sides of the underworld. I find myself listening to this soundtrack often. I'm listening to it right now as I write this script. I could probably talk the rest of the video about the wide range of emotions this song list instills. From the plucky track of Papyrus's theme, yeah, to the daunting terror of Your Best Nightmare, the mysterious, wistful notes of Waterfall piquing the player's curiosity and caution. I can't tell you how much my heart swells with Resolution when I hear the track Save the World. Those are just some examples of the 101 tracks this game has to offer. The music draws you into the world, making it easier to connect emotionally, whether that feeling is joy or heartbreak or sometimes even fear. I have a confession to make. On my first playthrough of Undertale, I killed Toriel. I know, I feel bad about it, okay? I only killed her because I had a fundamental misunderstanding about the overall vibe of the game. You see, I had heard about the game, watched the trailer, and hopped right in. I hadn't seen any online discourse or YouTube videos reviewing it. I essentially went in blind. From the very beginning, I had felt like there was something off about the game as a whole. Flowey didn't really ease my paranoia either. Regardless, I thought that this game, as bright and playful as it was, had some underlying horror aspects to it, which, in all fairness, looking back, there are definitely some spooky things going on. My suspicions made me cynical, and when Toriel told me I couldn't go home, the alarms in my head began to go off. In my defense, she was saying things like, oh, you need to show me how strong you are, blah, blah, blah. So I just assumed that I could beat her up to like 1 HP and she would let me through, but no, I killed her. Oops. Looking back on it now, though, the sad reality is that I did not just come into this world as an objective observer. Rather, I came into it with my own bias and prejudice. Every game that I had played up to this point followed a pretty straightforward structure. You play as the hero. A villain is trying to do something bad. There's something or someone you need to save, and the villain is going to try to stop you using his or her army of monsters. Here, you're dropped into an uncertain world, a child. The first entity you encounter literally is a flower that tries to murder you. Not exactly the most comforting introduction into the universe. You are saved by a seemingly kind character, Toriel, but then she tells you that you can't go home. She even uses violence to try to stop you. Flowey looked innocent enough, but in the end was trying to hurt you, so why shouldn't you assume Toriel isn't just the same? After all, this is a video game and she's a monster. There's a structure. There's rules. Of course, the aspect of using the mercy mechanic has been introduced by this point, but once again, if it was introduced by a character that is trying to keep you captive, does she have some kind of ulterior motive? Is she just trying to protect her own kind? At this point in the game, I was asking myself these questions, not really knowing where I stood, not knowing who I could trust. Then I met these two and I felt like I had more context. I say this with love, but Papyrus is too innocent and too stupid to be a conniving monster that I couldn't trust. With Flowey, Toriel, and all the monsters I came across that tried to kill me, I really wasn't sure where I stood in this world. Even Sans, while making me laugh, made me a little uneasy, which turns out that feeling was justified. Papyrus showed me that not all monsters were dangerous. In my mind, for the first time playing it through, this was the first real evidence that I didn't have to kill my way through the entire story, and I grit my teeth despite prior training as a monster killer and resolve to spare him. The rest of my playthrough kind of went back and forth like this. I did kill Undyne because I couldn't figure out how to spare her, and in my mind she was too resolute to be swayed from her duty. After I finished the game with the most horrifying boss fight ever, breaking the fourth wall and whatnot, I was completely happy and satisfied with my experience. Shortly after, I found out that there were multiple endings, and I basically immediately set out for a pacifist run. Taking the time to consider that the monsters were beings too, just trying to live their lives, was something that had never even crossed my mind until this game. I never once thought about whether or not a Goomba had a family waiting for him back home when I crushed him with Mario's bodacious booty. Why did I put that in the script? The monsters attacking you on sight even make sense in terms of the story. In the very beginning, we know that the humans and monsters have been at war in the past. While playing through my first pacifist run, I actively would often think, are we the baddies? You certainly can be if you go for a genocide run. I couldn't do it, for the record. I killed Papyrus once and I just couldn't handle the guilt. I don't care, call me weak or whatever. I just did not enjoy it one bit. In fact, laugh all you want about all of this. I mean, one could argue that having the realization that you could be the monster in the story is like baby's philosophy 101. But in reality, there are a lot of people in this world who will never achieve this actualization and will live their entire lives either as the hero or the victims of their own stories, never looking in the mirror to make sure they aren't growing fangs or horns. And whether or not you decide to be besties with everyone, make it through by killing one or two people out of necessity, or become the psychopathic murderer of everything in sight, one word repeats and remains true for all three choices: determination. This word is repeated at every save station throughout the game, as if Toby himself is encouraging you to keep trying, to keep moving forward. I've already talked about how this game came to me at a trying period in my life, and frankly, it reminded me to have hope in the future, to stay determined despite the circumstances. Things are bad, like being a child falling into a hole filled with dangerous monsters. Determination. Things are difficult, like trying to make friends with the very monsters who are actively trying to kill you. Determination. Things feel impossible, like that boss fight that has killed you over and over again and feels hopeless. Determination. This even applies to me today. Is the world looking more bleak every day? Determination. Did that last video flop? Determination. I've failed so many times in my life at so many things. By most metrics, one could argue I'm not very good at most things, but one thing that I've learned, the one thing that I've gotten pretty good at, I know how to get back up after falling. For me, Undertale wasn't just a game. It was a message that came to me when I felt like staying down after falling. I was in a pit. I couldn't see any way out. Here I am a decade later talking about it here on YouTube and making videos about other indie games. I imagine if you've watched this far that you've played this game, and if you haven't, you should consider checking it out. I can tell by the fanbase that was generated by the game that I wasn't the only one moved by what was said here. I'm just thankful that I'm here, getting to talk about it now because I stayed determined. Hopefully, this video, like knowing that the mouse might one day find a way to heat up the spaghetti, fills you with determination too.